All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Friday, June 16th, 2023. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it today. So I'm doing the videos early here, and to me, the reason why is it looks just like a pin job. So again, I talked about this earlier in the short video this morning. And you can see, look at markets flat as a pancake, up 5 basis points here. Q's up 3, Dow up 2, and the Russell's actually lagging here again, and that is negative here. It just looks like a pin job, quad witch. They're just kind of burning both sides out, so not much to make out of the action. I don't expect too many fireworks before the close, outside of what could be some rebalancing here. Take a look at Tesla and Nvidia, both green here on the day. Some of the other big tech names, Google, Microsoft, under a little bit of pressure here. You know, I'm looking at my board here, a lot of flatness. But you are seeing, why is Tesla and Nvidia up? It looks like rebalancing. So when you have this big move towards the end of quarter, big surge in Tesla, you know, what's this, 150 to 260 in, you know, 2 months, not even. You're going to have that weighting change as these ETFs and these funds need to rebalance, and there's going to be some forced buying. So don't be surprised to see a huge volume spike on Nvidia and Tesla into the last 5-10 minutes market on close volume as they need to rebalance. Now that's one thing here too, and these stocks are really high on the hog, as we know. Nvidia, Tesla especially. You know, if they correct, they now have, one thing to take into account is they now have a much bigger weighting in the NASDAQ and the S&P. So something to consider here. But outside of that, again, going back to yesterday's video, you know, we're starting to see that volatility come unpinned here. And again, we're just continuing with the theme here, just melt up mode. Now that Opex is out of the way, or will be out of the way next week, I'm very interested to see how this market trades. Powell is speaking Wednesday and I believe Thursday too. So we'll see if he reiterates some. I know the market right now, obviously yesterday, you know, well, Wednesday we had that whipsaw even into his press conference, and then Thursday it was like, okay, we don't care about what you just said, and we're just going to kind of challenge you here. And yeah, so that's where the market's at right now. If we look at ZT, so looking at the 2-year, that's still kind of respecting a little bit of what Powell is saying. And we go over here too. We'll look at the bonds. I like to look at the yield a little bit, gives you a better picture. This is holding up well. Again, this Fed, and they had the Fed, you know, I think Waller was out earlier, so now the Fed blackout period is over with. They've got their speakers out there, and they've been kind of hawkish all morning. Again, markets are still flattish right now. Again, like I said, Opex pinning, that's normal. They're still hawkish, and it does seem the 2-year, again, outside of the Fed funds futures, bonds are still kind of respecting that. You look at the 5-year here, that's holding up well. 10-year and 30-year all green on the day. And again, this 2-year starts to move towards 5%. It's really going to confirm what the central banks have been saying. We're also seeing central bank hawkishness around the world. Canadian, European ECB, and Australian central bank hiking recently. So we'll see. Does the Fed follow through with that into July? We'll see how that plays out. Outside of that, though, markets right here. Again, we blew through this trend line and this level right here on the spiders. Next big level is around 450 if it can get there. So we'll see. That's where your big pivot top is. And again, Powell talking next Wednesday. I would assume Tuesday will probably be a nothing burger outside of any sort of geopolitical stuff going on over the weekend. Just based on the fact that Powell is speaking Wednesday, and usually when you get a holiday, 3-day weekend, there is some kind of hangover effect there. But those are the levels we're watching here. On the downside, if you break below this pivot, then that opens the door for more downside, but we have to even get there before we can talk about that. The triple Qs here, again, gapping up and then selling off. Looks like a pin job to me, so good gap up and then just sideways all day. Maybe it floats up towards the end of the day and we put in a little hanging man. Either way, you know how it is. Qs are ridiculously overbought. We're into some pretty good resistance too, but they continue to hold up and we'll have to respect them until proven otherwise. Take a look at this extension. You know, again, up 20% since April 24th, so that's less than 2 months. Massive move here, and you know, you get the feeling that everybody's waiting on that correction. When is that going to come? We'll see. But here are the Qs, and just turning negative on the day. But again, let's not make too much out of it. We'll see really what we get next week. If you negate this green bar here, Then your short-term levels around 355 and 350, and if you get through that, then you're going down to 335. On the weekly, here's the concern that I have is there's no support down to 322. You have this little pivot right there, but again, it's just a vertical move. Lots of shorts getting squeezed, and you're seeing lots of euphoria out there. So that is a concern that I have for the market right now. Anyways, Dow here, that is red on the day, like most of markets here, flat to red. Again, we talked about this pivot here around 348. It's not there yet, but again, just an inside day. If it consolidates, it can push higher. But that's really all I've got here on the Dow right now. It is through that trend line, so it's holding up just fine. Russell 2000, again, holding up as well. Pretty good volatility here, though, the last couple of days. Big red candle, up, nice up candle yesterday, and then big red candle today. So a lot of volatility here, but you're still inside of this green. So as long as you're in this green bar, you can make a case that's a bull flag, and I think it's going to 192, as I've told you guys recently. That's probably what it wants to do here, and then we'll reevaluate it there. All right, over to the semis. SMH flat as a pancake here. AMD down 2.63% here. NVIDIA, obviously, we talked about getting lots of calls. Look at Broadcom there. What an amazing move on Broadcom. That is something else there. That is at an all-time high, or basically all-time high there with the 920, that big surge there. But semis a little bit under pressure here over the last 2 days, but nothing terrible. They're still trending up. You got to figure maybe this will test double top. It's not that far away. Again, with rebalancing, that can happen. NVIDIA can push it up there, so we'll see what we get. Going into next week, IGV, that is negative. Again, gapping up like everything else and coming back in. Remember, pivots right there. So we can draw that right in. And, you went almost right there, exactly, a little extended there, so no surprise that it's pulling back. But again, these markets have been extended, and they've gone into plenty levels and still gone on. And that's the power of positioning and the power of put decay, essentially. But anyways, Dow Transport's backing off a little bit. Where did it go today? 14,982. So we said 15,000 to 15.2, and it pulled back right at that 15,000 handle. This can still get up to 15.2. Again, there's your red bar high right there. So that could get tested next week. We'll watch for that here. But again, transport's red, just like most things on the day. 10-year we talked about already, so that's holding up well. I like that pattern. 30-year, I like the pattern as well. I like the pattern better on the 2-year. But again, yields still holding up, and they need to be respected. XHB slightly negative here, still can get up to about 78, so nothing wrong there. Same thing with ITB, that's holding up well. VNQ finally got above. Look at that, you made a high going back to March. You got to go, that's like a 3-month high there for VNQ, but it looks like it's going to close back below 84. Maybe that's the Opex pin there for VNQ, is the 84 handle. It tested the 200. Not a bad little inside bar pattern too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, and it tried to break out here, coming back in. We'll see if that can get a pop next week again. What I say, 85.50 to 86. There's a resistance there at that red bar. Maybe it can get up there, but finally showing some strength again. We talked about the higher low, but not a little bad pattern here. Just hard to trust it when you failed that pattern previously. But again, you have a higher low, so we'll give it that for now. But again, it's Opex week, so it is getting pinned down just like everything. XLF, again, flat, literally flat as a pancake as we speak. Trying to close above that 200 MA. It's got a shot to do it. On the weekly, this is kind of more important to me, the 50-week MA. If you get a close above that, then that, we talked about this yesterday, then you can kind of change the bias a little bit here. But still, you kind of have like a weekly, it looks kind of bear flaggish, right? So even with getting above that 50-week moving average, it still doesn't change the fact that you've got this big down move. Oh, that's not what I want to do here. It always does that when I do these videos. There we go. And you're inside of this channel. So down move inside of the channel. We'll watch that, but it's had a nice little pop here off the low. So we'll leave it at that. KRE here, still not a bad pattern. It is red on the day, but still not a bad pattern for an advance to 46. KBE, still not a bad pattern for an advance to 39 to 40. And then broker dealers here, stalling out at 480. Again, we talked about 475 the other day. It got there, and this is where it's stalling here. If it flags, then 490 is your next level. All right, over to crude. So energy space getting a bid today. Crude trying to peak above this little trend line here. It's not the best trend line. It's not really exact here. I would prefer this high to connect to this high, but it's just to give you an idea of where it's trending. But nice pop today. Rig count came in. It's holding up pretty nicely here after the rig count. I'm not sure what oil was. I know gas rigs were down 5. But either way, you got above this red bar. So a nice little close yesterday. And you're back above the 20 MA. So it's holding up for now. If we erase these lines, though, you still have, let's just do this here. Let's get rid of that. You're still just sideways, right? So again, you can make a case, weekly chart, bearish consolidation inside of this big red bar. And still, inside of this big down move. So I think it's still setting up for a one more punch lower, but right now it's getting a pop here, and we'll leave it at that. XLE, that is green today, up 0.5%. Nothing terrible here. I don't like the weekly, as you guys know. XOP, I don't like the weekly either, but it's green today. OIH, I don't like the weekly as much, but daily, if you consolidate enough, it can kind of shape that up a little bit. Still needs to get above 280 on a weekly close to even have a chance there. But right now, nothing absolutely terrible. Nat gas getting a nice pop again, following through from yesterday. Still got some resistance at this trend line, along with this kind of pivot here, this little zone. And that's basically where it stalled out. We did have -5 gas rigs, and it got a little sell earlier and then came right back up. And now it's still basically at the highs of the day. This might need to flag just a little bit, but this is holding up well, and you have higher lows here. So nat gas looking like it's got a little rounded bottom there, and that's shaping up much, much better now. All right, over here to the dollar index. So dollar index definitely weaker, and we're now in a short-term bear kind of look here. So up until we broke this trend line, it was, I would say a bullish look. But now it appears we're going to have a weekly close below that. So it doesn't look like, unless they have a huge rally here in the next 2 hours, it's looked like it's going to break that level. Now it is holding support here on the daily. So you see this area here that we broke out of. It's still holding that level. So there's still a chance it can shape up. But I never like it when you break this, like a green bar like that on the weekly. It does suggest that there's some weakness there. So right now, short term, going to be neutral to bear on the dollar. Doesn't mean it can't shape up, but right now it definitely, with that candle yesterday, it looked okay Wednesday, nice little test and then bounce, and it was green yesterday for a minute and then came back in. Definitely a little bit on the weaker side. So we'll watch how this holds up. If it can hold 102 and firm up, then maybe it can go higher. But right now, a little bit more neutral to bearish on the DXY. Gold here. So that is green here, and only up 5 basis points here with the dollar down as much as it is, or I guess the dollar is up a little bit, but relatively it's not up that much. In fact, yesterday, it reversed nicely, but it's not like it had a big breakout move, whereas you look at the dollar, it kind of had a breakdown move. So gold kind of underperforming just a little bit here. Still above the weekly 20 MA, but you've hammered on this a bunch of times and made a lower low, so I'm not convinced gold wants to go higher here. I would like, when you test that 20 MA like that, you'd want to bid off of it. Like you want it to, all right, boom, like we hit that, it's strong, it's telling you it's strong when it does that. It doesn't mean it can't eventually, push up, but I would prefer to see more of a robust move. So it can still set up for a move to 1900, so just be aware of that. Silver also green, up 1%. Still inside of that little green bar, so nothing terrible there for silver right now. Still kind of neutral on it, though I still think it wants to go down and test 21. But anyways, platinum, that is flat to lower here on the day. Nothing great. Looks like it's going to lose that 200 moving average. We'll see how that behaves moving forward. I'm watching the bigger time frames, though, on that one. And then palladium, nice pop. So that is back above 1400 now. Still hanging in there. We'll see what this does. Watching this one for pattern as well, but it did rebound nicely off that little, I am interested because when you hit this low here and then you can get back above it, a lot of the time you can trap shorts. So that's something to watch. It's really hard to play this. I mean, unless you play the futures, the only way to play it is PALL, and I guess the spread's not terrible today, but it a lot of the time it's pretty bad. So, again, just be aware of it. Maybe that's just because Opex it's better today, but either way, nice little move there for palladium. I am watching that too. Copper, where did it go today? 392.7. I said 393, and that's where we pull back from. So right there, Bink. So we'll see where that goes here. If it flags, maybe we can go back to 4. Right now, I think that's pretty good resistance here, though, in the short term. All right, lastly, Bitcoin. I actually tweeted about this earlier today. Can you tell it's Opex? So take a look at this intraday. 15-minute, we just dump big time all the way down to 25.2, and then right back up here, and then just kind of stair-stepping up. So that's, typical Opex type action there. But Bitcoin getting a bid and holding this big level here. Again, that's 25, 25.3, somewhere in that area. I'm not sure. Yeah, so right there's that hit, and there's another pivot there. So pretty good level there for Bitcoin. You closed below this green bar yesterday, which I don't like at all. But, it's getting a bid here, and, sometimes you get Opex games. Again, right now, we lost that 20-week moving average, so that is a negative. It's not a death sentence, but it is a pretty good negative. And technically, you're still inside of this red bar. I would feel a lot better about a long here if it went to 23.5. That's a much better level here. It doesn't mean it can't put in, it can't rally now, but I think 23.5 is just a much higher percentage play here, but it is rallying here today and catching a bid. All right, lastly, back over to the spiders here again. It's about 2 p.m. here. Again, I don't expect much movement here into the bell. But again, watch rebalancing. There will probably be a bid on Tesla and Nvidia, probably a couple other names too, some of the big names that have moved. And we'll see how that plays out into next week. Again, market's very stretched, very overbought. And Powell talking Tuesday, so those are the or I should say Wednesday. So those are some things to look into to next week. Anyways, guys, gonna wrap up here. You guys take care. Come find me on CarnivoreTrades.com. I'll talk to you all next week.